secure online. I mean, this is targeted at just about everybody, so that you can get the most basic things done that help to keep you and your family members safe. You shouldn't need any technical expertise for this. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, and I would encourage that you ask questions if you do. I would share with you how to ask questions. So very quickly, I'm going to share a screen here. Yes. Desktop 2. Can you see my screen, please? Can everyone see my screen? Raised Android. Okay, so people can see my screen. That's good. All right. Don't worry about the size of what you're seeing now. I'm going to make it big enough for everyone to see. All right, so let's get into it. So I want to talk about the basic things that you should do to keep yourself and your family safe. I've called it A to Z of information security and cyber security. It's simple, it's basic, but I guess you can learn a few things. So the first one is always log out from all web services except you're a professional. If you are on this call, okay, let me create this place where people can basically post comments. I encourage us to be very interactive as we go through the session. So I'm just going to create a group and call it questions, comments. I'm going to share this. So if you look very quickly, you would see something called, you see a QR code, right? If you have a moment, you can please scan that QR code or just use the URL. I'm going to post the URL as well. I think Dotun and Tim, you should have access to post. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Dotun and Tim, if you could please just help put that URL in the chat section so that people can see it and click on it if they need to. But the easiest way is just scan that QR code. So the thing is, I said always log out from web services except you're a pro. If you are here on this call, there are about how many people now? If you're on this call and you know that in the last 24 hours, you've actually logged on to something and you didn't log off, can you just put a comment in there or raise your hand? Let's see how many hands you get raised. Oh, good. It's a story of our lives, eh? Yeah. Don't worry, we're all in the same thing. So as I mentioned, except you're a pro, please, the logout is intended for a specific purpose. Always log out. And the reason is this, in today's world, it's easy for people to envisage services that people use. It's also easy for people to identify the services that you use. And if you're already logged in, then someone can basically use your existing sessions and gain control. It could be anything. There's background noise from someone's mic. He's watching a movie on the side. Okay, thanks, it's gone. Yeah, so basically, I mean, people can find out what it is that you're currently doing, and if they need to, basically, if they're interested enough, they can gain access. So always log out from sessions. I know that you typically have sessions on your browsers, whether it's on your phone or your computers. I know that there are people that have WhatsApp enabled on the computer and WhatsApp enabled on the phone. If you could take a quick session, just quick check-in. If you all can just spend a minute to look at your WhatsApp, if you go to WhatsApp and you go to your settings, please. Settings, WhatsApp desktop. If you have WhatsApp logged on another device besides your mobile phone, can you raise your hand, please? One, two, three, four. Okay. So there are quite a number of people. If you have, okay, good. If you have WhatsApp logged on more than one device besides your phone, can you raise your hand, please? Okay. If there are some of the devices that you just saw that you are surprised that you are still logged on to, can you raise your hand, please? Oh, okay, so no one. Oh, one person. Okay, good. So they are real humans on the other end of this session. That's good. Typically, these are things you should be aware of, and it's not just WhatsApp. There are many other services as well that you're logged on in many places. From time to time, you should please just take a minute or two and log out of all of those sessions because they can be reused and they can be used to compromise you. Sometimes it's intentional compromise, sometimes it's accidental. Next is be paranoid. If you've received a message on any of your popular messaging platforms in the last 48 hours and you clicked on a link, I don't care whether it came from your mom or your dad, especially your mom. I mean, I don't like those messages from my mom. She can broadcast that. If you received a message from someone, whoever it is, and you clicked on the link in the last 48 hours, can you just raise your hands, please? Okay, so they're really humans here. My advice to you is this, especially on a mobile phone, links are dangerous, right? Links are very dangerous, regardless of what's on the other hand. You should just reconsider how you click on links. And sometimes I know that links might be tempting. You want to read the news, you want to read the article, etc. So what I would advise is you see a link and you really feel motivated to go on and find out what's on the other side. My advice is this: copy the link, right click and copy. Next is you shouldn't depend on one browser as the total entry and exit point of your digital life. So if you use an Android phone as an example, and every link you click opens directly in your Google Chrome browser, that's a problem. If you use an iPhone and every single link you click on opens in your Safari browser, that's a problem. If you view messages on the same browser that, I mean, when you click on links, it opens in the browser, right? If that's the same browser you log on to for either your mobile banking, your email, your whatever it is, can you raise your hand, please? Okay, I guess I guess we're getting to something here. If you have only one browser on your smartphone, can you raise your hand, please? Okay. Okay. So it's a bad idea to have only one browser. It's also a bad idea to use the same browser that is your default browser. I mean, in some of the scenarios, you can't change what browser that is. It's a bad idea to use that same browser to check links from everywhere, as well as log into anything at all, whether it's CRA website or it's whatever it is, it's a bad idea. So what I advise you to do is this: have multiple browsers. On my phone, I'm going to see if I can show you this. So I'm going to take a screenshot and I would send it to, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to show you a screenshot of how many browsers I maintain. I'm not saying you should maintain as many. I'm only saying this is something you should think about. Can you see my screen? Okay, good. So, good. So these are quite a number of browsers, and I use browsers for different things. First and foremost, I use iOS. I'm an Apple fanboy. So my default browser on my phone that I can do nothing about is Safari. For that reason, I'm very careful about how I click links. Also because Safari is the browser that I trust the most. Every individual must have one browser that they trust, and then many other browsers, or maybe just one other browser for every other thing. The reason is this: because we're humans, there is a tendency for you to fail the first item I listed here. Always log out, right? There's a tendency for you to forget to do it. Not that you're a bad person or that you're forgetful. It's just the fact that we are humans and the way we behave. There's a tendency for you to forget to log out of things, right? If your browser gets compromised, then active sessions, sometimes cookies, credentials, authentication tokens, and yada, yada, all of the technical stuff may be compromised, and you may be giving people access to your accounts. It's also possible that you've saved credentials in your browsers. If you've saved a credential, any username and password in your browser, can you raise your hand, please? Oh God. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have credentials saved, but just imagine that the same browser that holds your username and passwords is this browser that you use to visit, what could it be? Linda EKG, for want of better, or some news website, etc. It's a bad idea. So what I think you should start to do, starting today, is download a number of browsers. So I'll give you, a history of the browser that I have. The first browser you find here is Firefox Focus. It doesn't have tabs. There's only one session in it. When you close that browser, everything that you did in it is gone. It's gone forever. When you open it afresh, it starts a new session. So this is my most paranoid browser. That's why it's at the top left-hand corner. When I want to open links that people share with me on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on any of the social media platforms, this is my go-to browser. Because if that browser gets compromised, who cares? I really don't care. It's not that your device can get compromised. And there's a lot of other layers of attack that could happen, but this just gives me that layer of protection, knowing that I have nothing in it. I can never have anything in it that is valuable for someone to compromise. The second browser that I have there is Brave. It's a privacy browser, and it goes hand in hand with the last one on the left. So these two browsers basically are privacy browsers. Very quickly, I would show you something. So I'm going to open Daily Mail. .co.uk, right? Okay, so when I fire up this page, as you can see, there is an advert here, 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 there's one in the middle right on top, and as you keep scrolling, you keep seeing adverts here and there, firing up everywhere. I'm going to fire up another browser and open, this time around, it's Brave I'm going to fire up. So, 1 second. So I'm just going to bring new tab. Bring it to this side. Good. All right. And then in this browser, I'm going to go to exactly the same URL. co.uk. Good. So it's the same. I'm going to put them side by side just for, maybe that may be too much. I want you to see the sides as well. So same content. Remember, when we started from here, you have an advert on the left, on the right, in the center, right? Same website, same items at least posted on the same page. And you can see this one all of a sudden has no adverts. How many of you know that some adverts have malicious links? They are posted by bad actors so that you can click on them. Oh, great, good, good. So just look at that. Look at the difference in what I see opening this page on Brave browser versus opening it. See, this one has even stayed there and it's probably going to play a video, right? How many of you now think it's a good thing to have more than one browser? Good, 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 good. How many of you will, it's one thing to know, it's another thing to do something. How many of you will, after this session, install an additional browser, whether it's on your phone or on your mobile device? That's good. If that's the only thing we've achieved today, we've achieved something. That's good. So key thing is, look, you need to be paranoid and just recognize the fact that the bad actors would always want to get something from you if they have a chance. Sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it's intentional. Reduce your own attack surface, so have as many as work for you. This browser is basically a browser that is tied to my antivirus software. This is a browser that I used to go to the underground, and many of you would have zero need for this, so you don't need to worry about it. Firefox is an interesting browser now because it now has features that allows you to isolate specific websites like Facebook. How many of you have searched for something online, and then when you went back to your Facebook, adverts around those things? So say you search for a master's degree, right? And then when next you went to Facebook, adverts around master's degrees to start following you all over the internet. How many of you have experienced something like that? Or you search for a power bike or something? Can you raise your hand, please? Oh, good. So it happens to everybody, exactly. So browsers like, oh, wow. It looks like everybody gets followed all over the internet. So whatever you do on the internet, basically, you leave breadcrumbs, you leave traces. And that brings me to this. You leave traces that can basically be picked upon to understand your browsing history, your preferences, your interests, and basically sell you as a product to an advertiser, regardless of who the advertiser is, whether they're good actors or bad actors. So, Firefox now has a feature that allows you to isolate a service like Facebook. So you go to Facebook in Firefox, it isolates everything Facebook into that tab such that it doesn't follow you across the internet. So I thought you should know that. So clear your cookies, delete your browser history frequently. If you don't use a browser like Firefox Focus, Focus is not the most interesting browser to use. As I mentioned, it doesn't have tabs. You can only do one thing at a time, and when you're done, it's all gone. If you don't use a browser like that, if you use any of the other popular browsers that you can find, at a minimum, set a reminder, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, whatever works for you. Set a reminder to actually go into your browser, and I'll show you. I guess everybody should probably knows how to do this. Go into your browser settings and basically go and clear your history. Okay? Additional settings, privacy and security, and then you see somewhere where it tells you to clear your history. Okay, so this also has social media blocking. So, if you have a moment, play with your browser settings, basically. Play with your settings so that you can see whatever else you have there that you want to delete. And then once in a while, come here, clear history. The default will be last hour. Make sure that you set it to whatever time works for you and just clear that history. It would help you a lot in terms of being safe online. Okay. Next is don't write down passwords and pins. If you have a password written down somewhere, can you raise your hand, please? Yeah, so someone asked a question, for the logout bit, does it matter if you're using a public or private computer? The assumption is that you're using a private computer. My advice to you is do not use a public computer. I don't know why you would want to use a public computer. Honestly, I can't explain it. Because if I owned that computer, I'll put interesting things that will just steal your information, make it look like it's the real banking login page so that you can log in, and then I redirect you. I don't know how else to explain it. Please don't use a public computer. If you've used one in the last 5 weeks, please give yourself a knock on the head and raise your hand. If you've used a public computer in the last 5 weeks, nobody has. Thank you. Okay. It's safer to do whatever it is you're trying to do on your mobile phone if you have no access to a computer. Now, I know that there are services, so there are times that you go to government agencies and there is a computer there. As long as you are not using that for personal information, anything that links back to you, which is really tricky. because you go to a government agency or one of the government offices and you want to use one of their computers to fill a form. On that form, you probably put your SIN, you put your full name, you probably put your address. If you've done any of this recently, please raise your hand. Put your address, you put your date of birth, you put all of the things that can identify you, and you think because it's government, it's secure. It's a bad idea. If you can, please don't ever, ever, ever use a work computer. If you've used a public computer, how do you end the session? So typically, if you've used a public computer, my advice to you is this. It's probably too late. I mean, as long as you are here now, you're not on that public computer, it's probably too late. However, it's the same thing, you know, clear all the sessions. So you need to know to go into a browser settings and go into where you can basically erase your data. It's usually different things on different computers. So privacy and services is usually where you find it. And then clear browsing data, manage your data, choose what to clear. That's how to do it if you've used the public computer. And you do it right away as soon as we're done. Okay. All right, but again, my default stance is please don't use a public computer, even if they pay you for it. Don't use a public computer, except what you are using it for is absolutely public, like reading the news on CBC website, CNN, Fox News, whatever works for you, that's fine. But anything that can come back to you, that you can either log into, use a credential, or something that ties back to you, please never use a public computer. Resist the urge. Okay, next is, educate yourself on cybersecurity. Back in the day, cybersecurity seemed like a niche thing, and I mean, it looked like it was for geeks. Today, it's everybody. When I started my career in cybersecurity, it seemed as if it was a very, very, very restricted field. I can tell you for free, in 20 years or less, every IT-related job will be a cybersecurity job. And so anybody that, you know, the way they tell you, if you're looking for a job here, at least understand how to use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. A level of awareness is going to be required in terms of cybersecurity for everybody that wants to be a workforce of the future. So educate yourself, go online. I mean, you have YouTube, you're a professional, you can learn everything. So use YouTube, learn whatever it is you can, find out how secure am I, how safe am I, what should I worry about, should I be concerned about my internet? Type whatever it is and you will be surprised at the answers that will come back to you. So educate and enlighten yourself to make your life better. Next is follow common sense advice. I'm sure there are lots of the things that I've either talked about today, or that I'm going to talk about, or that I'm not even going to talk about, but that you've heard passively or actively. Just follow good advice. You know, it's relevant, it's helpful, it can save your life, especially if you have a young family, you know, and kids are growing up and they're beginning to get inquisitive. Please follow common sense advice in terms of cybersecurity. If you are very active on social media, when I say social media, it's not just Facebook, Twitter, it's also WhatsApp status, etc. If you've posted more than 10 pictures in the last 1 month, please raise your hand on all of your social media platforms. More than 10 pictures in the last 1 month, please raise your hand. Nobody. Wow. If you've posted up to 5 in the last 1 month, let me see your hands, please. Looks like people don't use WhatsApp status and Instagram status and all of those things here. Nobody has posted up to 5 pictures of themselves in the last, okay, there are a few. If you are quick to say happy birthday on your social media platform, oh, today is my birthday. Today thank God for 48 years on this earth. If you've posted something like that recently or before, can you raise up your hand, please? Okay. So, every time you post things like that, you've basically disclosed your date of birth. How many of you know that your date of birth is it's authentication information, especially with financial services? Your date of birth is important, sensitive information. How many of you know? Yet you say, oh, wow, thank God for 48 years. Oh, Oluwa Eshe. Okay, if you typically do things like that, you need to stop. And if you already have that data out there in permanent places, I mean, more permanent than others. So if you have things like status messages that fade away, well, maybe those have gone. But you have things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you have posts that give specific information like that out. You need to take a note today to go back to comb through all that you've posted and delete those items. Your date of birth is important in engaging with government. It's important with engaging with the banks. It's sensitive information. How many of you are committing? How many of you think you have something to go and delete? Can you please raise your hand? Okay. Okay, please take a note and make sure to do it. Now, it would be nice if it were just you, right? Guess what? How many of us have siblings? How many of us have siblings that can't stop posting? Thank God for my lovely uncle. Today is his date of birth. He's 74 today. Or your mom. Thank God for this, my lovely son. Today is his 42nd birthday. He's such a great son. I'm thankful for. And then they tag you in it. How many of you have posts like that? No one? Oh, wow. People don't have the type of family members that some of us do. Okay, but if you find yourself in a scenario where you have family members who unknowingly give out sensitive personal information about you, you should actually go and comb through your social media accounts and untag yourself if you can't get them to delete it. Okay, it's a bad idea. And going forward, just think about it again before you share that kind of information. Next is hide your true identity online. How many of you give out your complete information at the slightest opportunity? You want to download the document, they say fill a form. You fill in your true name, true first name, true last name, true email address. How many of you do that? Please raise up your hand. Oh, nobody does. Oh, good. How many of you filled some of the forms from side gigs and extra and put your actual names? Nobody did. Oh, wow. This is good. Okay, so typically you should have two identities. I mean, we all know you are someone already, and trust me, the internet already knows who you are. You can't escape it. But as much as possible, you want to hide your true identity online, except it's a service that you need. So I understand the service like Facebook. Yes, you want people to find you. I understand something like LinkedIn. Oh, it's professional network, and you want people to be able to find you. But outside of those, there are many other places that people basically disclose their true identity. You log into a game. For crying out loud, you want to play FIFA 2020, and you put your full name. It's a bad idea. It's actually a bad idea. So you're on this call and your full name is displayed to all of us, even though you don't know who all of us are. It's a bad idea. I know that Zoom has become a business too, and some people have it pre-configured with their full names. But imagine the number of Zoom calls that you've that you've joined recently that you really don't know everything about the organizers, and it has nothing to do with work. Yet you disclose your full name to everybody. Think about it again. Try, if you can, have an identity that you use online that is separate from your true identity. Okay. Next is antivirus. How many people here are connected via a computer? Can you please raise your hand? Via a computer, can you please raise your hand? So not on a mobile phone, you are connected via a computer. Okay, good. If that computer does not have an antivirus, can you please raise your hand, or you just trust that, you know what, it's a Mac. You know, come on, no need to worry about viruses. Can you please raise your hand if the computer you're connected from right now does not have an antivirus software? Okay, that's a bad idea. And I know that there's always the discussion of, oh yes, it's a Mac, or oh, there's Windows Defender is good by default now, or there's free antivirus, AVG, free antivirus. If you think anything free is really free in the cybersecurity world, it's a bad, you need to rethink about that. If you've ever bought clothes or shoes, whatever it is, fashion items, worth more than $50, can you please raise up your hand? Most everybody, right? Yet an antivirus software is about $30 to $50. If it doesn't show on the top of your list in today's world, it's a challenge. So after this conversation, rethink about, putting something in place that basically protects you. And remember, it's not just you. Sometimes it's also other members of your family. There are ransomware attacks all over the world today. There are malwares that basically look as if they are doing nothing, but they are stealing your data in the background. You basically need to have antivirus software. There's no other way to say it. You basically need to have one. So if you don't have one, go shopping for one. I'll stay away from talking about any specific products, but do your own research and basically find one, right? If you currently use a device that is jailbroken, can I see your hands, please? Or if you currently or have used a device that is jailbroken, can I see your hands, please? No one. Oh, great. Oh, someone. Okay. If you're a pro, it's fine. Hopefully you know what you're doing. But if you're not, just know that any device that is jailbroken basically means that the security features that the OEM, the device manufacturer, put in place have been bypassed. Most of those devices have default root accounts. Root accounts means highly privileged accounts that can basically access it from anywhere at any time. And those things are usually left as default. So as an example, if you jailbreak an iPhone, there is a root account that is called Alpine. Everybody in the cybersecurity world knows it. And so if I can identify an iPhone on my network, on say Shaw network, I might just try that and see if I can get into it. And once you get into it, basically the possibilities are limitless. So if you're not a geek and you don't know what you're doing, don't use a jailbroken device. Also, if you buy a device off someone, especially if it's an Android device, if you can, you need to basically reinstall the OS and make sure that the OS you're installing is a trusted one, okay? All right, I'm gonna try to speed things up just a bit. Next is updates. You should update your operating systems, whether it's your phone or the apps on your phones, as frequently as those updates show up. So someone like me, when I wake up in the morning, after checking the first few things that are important to me, I look out for updates. If there are any updates anywhere, I want to be the first person basically to install those updates. Updates basically help protect you from being exposed because some of them address security issues. You don't need to know all of the security issues. You only need to know that when the updates come out, they are for a reason. And so you should basically install those updates. Next is locking your devices. If you have a laptop on this call that doesn't have a password, can you please raise your hand? Okay, there are a few people. All right, every device, every single device, and yes, maybe your kids need to access it, yada, yada, yada. Every single device, basically, please put a lock on it. Just put a lock on it. You don't need to justify the reason, just put a lock on it. Your device, your phone, and of course, don't do the Kanye West thing. How many of you know the Kanye West thing? Let me see if I can find it. So Kanye West had a session with Donald Trump. I don't know how many of you saw that session. And during the session, he was basically praising Donald Trump and talking a lot about all the things that are important to both of them. And then at some point, he wanted to show the president something. So he had to unlock his phone. On camera, Kanye West unlocked his phone and showed us that his credentials are 6 zeros. Let me see if I can find that very quickly. Okay, I think I can find it. This, yes, this is it. So, please look at this video. So this, how many of you have a password that looks like that? How many people on this call have a password that looks like that? 6 zeros. 1 1 1 1 1 3 3 3 3 3 4 4 4 4 4. Or it's your daughter's, okay, for ladies in the house especially, it's your daughter's date of birth. If your lock code is your child's date of birth, can you please raise your hand? Or your PIN code to your ATM card? Yes, okay. And there are pictures of that date of birth. And now, if there are pictures or posts of that date of birth on your social media network, can you also raise your hand? Let's see. Hopefully no one, right? Or you don't want to disclose to us. So I hope you know exactly what to do after this conversation. You know, typically it's a bad idea to have your children's date of birth, etc., as your lock code or your PIN code, etc. It's just a bad idea. A congressman in the US was compromised that way. They basically looked through his Facebook, saw his children's birthday photos, etc., used the dates, got into his account, and the rest is history. How many of you monitor your own activity online? Your own activity. How many of you actually monitor it? You know something? Oh, good. How many of you have never monitored your own activity online? You don't know when last, I mean, you log into a service, it says the last time you logged in was this date. You don't even bother checking it. How many of you have never ever monitored your own activity online or your kids' activities online? Oh, so everybody here does some monitoring. Okay, that's good. That's good. It's always a good idea to monitor what you are doing. There are very techy ways. There are also non-techy ways. But the key thing is at a minimum, so the kids use the computer, right? Go back into the browser and look at the history. The same way I showed you how to clear the history, you should go back and look at the history and look at what your children are looking into. And if there's anything that concerns you, then there should be a conversation. And then you should take steps to ensure that those things don't happen again. I've talked about links, so I'm not going to flog this. Never trust links. You need to be paranoid. You see a link, don't trust it. If you absolutely must open it, we already talked about using other browsers. Open attachments at your own risk. How many of you receive emails or broadcasts or forwarded messages and immediately you just open the attachments? If you open attachment, I mean, almost everyone does this. If you're on a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group, you see an attachment and you open it, especially if it's a document. How many of you have opened attachments that are documents from social media groups? Can you please raise your hand? Okay, people don't open attachments here. It's only videos they open. Okay, that's a good thing. Typically, you should resist the urge, basically, to open attachments because, I mean, attachments can be laced with all sorts. Pay for your own internet connection. How many of you connect to free hotspots? Sure, open, sure pass points. Tell us something. If you do, please raise your hand. No, nobody here connects to open free internet connection, not even at the coffee shop or at the malls. Oh yeah, okay. So please, it's a bad idea to connect to internet connections that you don't own. And the reason that I say so is that you don't know who the other person is at the other end. Internet connections are ways of getting access to you and compromising your information and data. So if you don't own it and you have no control over it, my advice is, you know what, don't connect to it. And even the ones that you pay for, you also need to be paranoid. So you know the way it works, you pay for Shaw or Telos and they bring a box into your house. They put it either in your basement or somewhere in your house, and then you configure. Some of you don't even bother changing the Wi-Fi name. It is Shaw 0256 2.5G and Shaw 0256 5 gig. If there's anyone here first that has not renamed their wireless network from what came on the box, can you please raise your hand? No one. Okay, good. We are very cyber. Oh, there are. Okay, good. So after this call, once you disconnect, please get yourself to rename your network. And please, if your name is Alex, don't name your network Alex Family Network. Do you understand? I mean, call it a name that doesn't suggest anything about you, that doesn't point to you. It's just a Wi-Fi name. You can pick up a name from one of the movies you like, Mufasa, Chakazulu, whatever it is, and name your network. But please ensure you do that after this call. Rename your network. Otherwise, if you've named your network something that suggests your name, you see something like Ayodele Family, Ayodele Network, Ayodele Home. Raise your hand. Let me see. If you've named your network after your family name, can you please raise your hand? Okay. So we know that there's Adeniyi Network somewhere. Please, after this call, just rename it, because you are basically calling attention to yourself. If someone were interested in you, they would need to look no further. They then know the specific network to work on, Next is, if you have any of those boxes from your ISPs, right? And you've never logged into it. So I'm not talking about using the app on your phone to look at your utilization, etc., or logging into the browser to look at your account and pay your bills. I'm talking about logging into the box. If you've never logged into the box, can you please raise your hand? So you know what you've done inadvertently? Basically, the networks and the people that work for them know all of the settings on that device and the username and password and everything that is configured on it. And you've never taken the liberty to at least change something. What that does is whenever they want, they can actually access your network. So if any of you has done some troubleshooting with the network providers in recent times, have you noticed that they actually log into your device? If you know that they log into your device, can you raise your hand? Good. So logging into your device means that they can log into your network. Just imagine if that guy were interested in seeing what you guys did. You won't need to put in a support ticket. It will just log in and say, hey, what are these guys doing? How many of you know that the networks are not very secure? So before this session, I went to my basement and I did a quick scan. Let me see if I can put it up. I'm going to need to log into this quickly. 1 second. So I use one of the popular providers, just as any of you will. It's Telos. And from time to time, I mean, this is because I'm a geek. And from time to time, I basically just look at what else I can find. If you can see my screen, so this is me connecting. This was just before we started. Let's see if you can see. Okay, so you can see this started at 12:47. So 13 minutes before we started this session. And I just did a scan to discover a number of hosts that I can find from inside my house. And see, right from inside my house, basically I can find all sorts of other devices that could be your house or someone else's house. Just think about that. Look at the number of them, and there are so many of them. So all of the ones that are Nokia, I know, I mean, just because I have some understanding now that all the ones that are Nokia are people that have fiber in their homes. And the ones that are not Nokia are the other box. So if I can see this, every other person on the network can see similar. And if, I mean, as we all know with the networks, is there anyone here that works with any of the networks, whether Shaw or TELUS, as a support engineer? Can I see your hand? No one. Okay. So typically, I mean, all of these devices have default credentials. The reason they do that, I mean, it doesn't make security sense, but it makes support sense. The reason that networks do that is there is a support engineer and he's troubleshooting and helping so many people. He knows one username and password for this type of device and another username and password for that type of device, so that whenever he goes to any house, he doesn't need to figure it. He already has knowledge of that. That information is on the internet. If you actually go online and say, sure, whatever that device you use is, default username and password, you will find it. So imagine sitting in my house and then logging into this person's network and then just looking at what they do. I can decide, you know what, let me redirect their traffic to myself. You know, I mean, the options are almost endless. So please, if you have a box from your internet service provider, at least try to log into it and see what's set up there. If there are default credentials, like things like admin tell us, admin sure to change those things and take control basically of your own exposure. You know, pay for your internet connection, but also be responsible for internet services within the family. I already talked about this in a bit. Quit sharing too much information. See, social media, I don't know. I know it makes people feel good, but less is more. The less you share, the better. The better for you and for your family. Just before I go away from that, also, I want to mention, so how many of you have concerns about what your kids or people within your home might be accessing on your internet connection? How many of you sometimes think you would like to stop people from accessing this kind of thing, but you really don't know how to do it? Okay, I will give you a very quick tip here. If you do have an internet connection at home and you really want to filter it, I mean, there are a few things that you want to filter out, basic things like malware, things like adult websites. You can set your DNS, and I know not everybody here is a geek, but some of you probably know how to set up a Wi-Fi network, how to set up. You can set your DNS as this 1.1.1.3. This IP address as your DNS is basically going to filter out adult content on your home network. So you don't need to worry so much. I mean, if the kids are smart, so they, you know, they will find a way around it. But this is just basic, you know. It helps keep a lot of things away. So if you know how to set it, is there anyone here that doesn't know how to set a DNS on a Wi-Fi network or something? Okay, someone asked about Incognito Mode. I'll talk about that. If you don't know how to set, okay, maybe what we'll do is at a later point in time, I would share a video or something with the organizers that they can circulate to everybody that basically just guides you in terms of how to set your DNS. You know, so if you set this IP address basically as your DNS IP, adult content, and you know, when you do things like this, you need to test it yourself. Adult content will not be visible on your website, on your home network, right? And so one less thing to worry about. All right, let's go on. Someone asked about how secure is fingerprint authentication? Can it be hacked? Okay, we'll talk about that. How about incognito mode? So incognito mode basically is saying, you know what? I want to keep my activities private within this tab. It's like using Firefox, Focus, etc. However, it's been proven that a lot of those modes, especially if you're using it in a browser like Google Chrome, are not totally incognito. if you know the way Google works, Google is primarily focused on selling adverts. Everything that Google does, whether it's Android phones or it's something glasses or it's Google Cloud Services, is basically geared towards helping Google sell adverts. And so for Google to sell adverts, Google needs to know who you are, what you do, what you're interested in, so that they can profile you correctly and sell you to advertisers. So if your browser is Google Chrome and you are doing incognito, to a large extent, yes, it just keeps your session private in there. It doesn't keep you private in the real sense to the likes of Google. If you really want to go private, you should use a VPN, right? So, and if you currently don't have a VPN service, it's something you should invest in. Again, for $100, you can get 3-year subscription that you can use on as many as 6 devices. I mean, these are things that are essential. Basically, if you're not already using them, you should consider using them and make sure that you're using them, right? So someone says, how secure is fingerprint authentication? Can it be hacked? It depends. It depends specifically on how it is implemented, right? Biometric authentication is supposed to be highly secure. However, the implementation differs. Some technologies store your fingerprint on the device. Some store it on servers. I mean, just telling you that tells you that the amount of access there is to that data will begin to vary, right? And then again, some protect that data very securely using a trusted security device. Some implement in other ways. So everything can be hacked. It really depends on the specific implementation. So we can't use one umbrella basically to cover all of biometric data, fingerprints, etc. All right, so we stopped at networks, cross links, quit sharing, restrain the urge to share, test your own defenses. So if you put in some defenses, make sure that you trust them. So I'll give you an example. On my network, if you try to go to an adult website, it's not just going to go because I've configured my network in that way, you know. And now it's easy to say, oh, if you do this, it won't work. So what you should actually do is test it and be sure that what you are saying is actually true, okay? All right. So next is, let's see. Next is use multi-factor authentication. How many people know that? How many people use multi-factor authentication here? For your LinkedIn, your Insta. Oh, good. You guys are super. You guys, let me give you Donald Trump's whatever. You guys are very special, very beautiful. Good. See, for almost all services today support MFA, right? So if you can, you should use multi-factor authentication. You should. There are a number of devices that can help you do that. There is Google Authenticator, there's Microsoft Authenticator, there are a number of open source ones. If you just go on your app store and search Authenticator, I'm sure you will find one. So that username and password will no longer be sufficient to access your accounts. You would need to own something, which is your device, multi-factor, before you can access your account. So use multi-factor authentication, especially for things that are very important to you. Verify, trust or verify. So trust, someone calls out to you and says, I'm from the CRA, right? It's okay to trust them, but you need to verify. In fact, if someone calls you and says, I'm from the CRA, you should just end that call because the CRA is never going to call you. They will send you something in the mail, right? You will go to your post box and you will get it out. If someone calls you and says, oh, uncle is sick and they need XYZ, it's fine to believe it, but you need to have a way of verifying that it's beyond reasonable doubt. Else, you and your money will soon be parted. Okay. Next is watch out for the perimeter. Watch out for physical, you know, it's easy to talk about cybersecurity and people think everything is logical. Physical security is also part of cybersecurity. I can tell you for free that recently with the pandemic, a lot of people have lost jobs. Crime is on the rise. So you can expect that people are going to have are going to experience increase in number of crime committed in their area. If you go to a place like Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace and you just type stolen, let me see if I can do that quickly. And you just type stolen, you will be shocked at the number of items that will show up as stolen. Where's my browser? Good. Good. I want to do marketplace stolen. Okay, good. Look at this. So I came to Facebook Marketplace, and as I mentioned, so I try to practice what I preach. So on Facebook, I mean, you won't find me, although I do have an identity. I'm anonymous, but at least it gives me access to know who is doing what. All right, stolen. How many results? Does it show the number? It doesn't, but you can just imagine the number of items that are stolen and listed. Crime is on the rise, I can tell you for free. So don't think about cybersecurity only in terms of logical. Think about your perimeter also. So if you park your car outside and you leave your laptop in it, or you put your bag in it, or you put this and that in it, recognize the fact that it's likely that those things can get stolen very easily. And next is exclusive browsers. We already talked about browsers. You will be hacked. And this is sad. Where do VPNs fit in? Okay, I'm going to address this. You will be hacked. I can tell you for free. All you need to do basically is make it harder for people to hack you. So, and if you think you would never be hacked, I mean, there is a website called Have I Been Pwned? PWNED. Something like that. Have I been pwned, right? If you type your email address in this website, basically, it will tell you if you've ever been compromised. So I need to think of an email address that I can type here. Sorry, it's going to be too much information, so I don't want to type it, but okay, let's do this. I can give this one off. So, oh no, pwned. So you can imagine, this email address have accounts that have been compromised on this website, unverified February 2018, collect January 2019, credential listings, IP mats, LinkedIn, May 2016, verifications.io. So from all of these apps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in 7 different services, that email address has shown up as one of those that have been compromised. If you've not changed your username and password on your important social media accounts in the last 1 year to 2 years, please.
No pwn found.
The session. Yeah? No pwn found. That's good.
Nope. For me, I just checked.
That's good. That's good.
Not.
That's good. So
me?
maybe that email address, as in, yeah. So you're good. So, but you know, you should check, basically, make it harder. And if you find out that a compromise happened, then make sure that you do something about it. Change your credentials regularly, use 2FA, etc. And the last is, you know, don't do cybercrime. You will be caught. I can tell you for free. Just don't do it. You will be caught. It might look as if it is, lucrative, but you will be caught. Okay? So, where do VPNs fit in? VPNs basically do 2 things for you. First, they help you stay anonymous. Second is that sometimes you have no choice but to connect to some networks that you don't trust, right? Or you want to do something very sensitive and you really want to control how that is being managed. A VPN comes in place. So I give you an example. Say you travel to another city where you have no coverage and you have to depend on the Wi-Fi, or you are traveling between countries and you're at the airport, you really need to reach out to people. You need to connect to the airport Wi-Fi, right? I mean, this is life, it happens. The moment you connect to such a Wi-Fi, you should go and fire up your VPN. So on my own devices, my emails don't automatically download. Email is not a 911. I don't need emails pushing and telling me when they come. The same thing for all of my social media accounts. So for some of you that are close to me, if you send me a message on WhatsApp, I may not see it till the next day because I don't need those things to come to me like this. No, I need them to come to me when I open the app. So there's no background app refresh, etc. So I have less worries about the fact that I connect to a Wi-Fi at an airport and then all my services are going online without protection. No. If I connect to such a Wi-Fi, I know that I will go to my VPN, fire it up. That gives me a secure tunnel, at least one that I can trust, no longer dependent on that Wi-Fi network. And then I can go into the services that are important to me and use them. Is it going to have an impact? Yes, it will slow the service, it will give me slower connection, etc. I can live with that. You know, I've been at the airport once at, which airport was this? I think it was Addis Ababa. The username and password for the wireless access point were default. And you know, it was a long wait. I had to wait about 6 hours at that airport. So, I mean, I was restless. I'm not saying you should do this. Like I said, if you do crime, you'll be caught. So I got restless and I was just snooping around to say, what's even available? Oh, there's an access point. What's the model? And then, you know, in minutes, you could actually see people online doing bank logins on airport Wi-Fi. I mean, it's ridiculous. You almost want to take a whip and find the person and whip them into order, but that's the reality. So VPNs come in those type of scenarios where you're absolutely powerless. You must connect to a network that you don't control. Connect to it, but fire up your VPN. You get to a hotel, you have no choice. You are stuck there for the next 5 days and you're not paying for data in a new country just for 5 days. Fire up a VPN. That's where VPNs come in. Sometimes too is at the office. Yeah, and it depends on what your office policy says though. But sometimes you're at the office, you need to access something and you just don't want the IT guys monitoring and seeing that you're logging onto this or you're applying for another job, etc. Fire up a VPN. VPNs, some of them even allow you to install them inside the browser. So you don't need to install a new application. Find out, see what works for you and make sure you use it. What's the best way to manage your passwords? The best way to manage your passwords is to use a password manager. So if you're on the iOS ecosystem, there is something called iCloud Keychain. Use Keychain. Let it generate passwords for you and let it save the passwords for you, which is why I said earlier, make sure you have a specific browser that you use for things that you put your credentials into. So if I want to create a new account on something, because it has to do with account anyway, I'm going to be doing that on my Safari browser. What's going to happen? Safari is going to generate the password. I don't need to memorize it. It's going to save it securely in Keychain for me. That password is going to be complex enough, and then I have fewer things to worry about. I will need to write it down, etc. So use a password manager. There are very many of them. If you go to Google and type password manager, there are very many of them. Use one that works for you, basically. And make sure that, of course, the password for your password manager itself is secure enough. All right. Someone says, oh, great question. How safe? Good. So I also do a lot of home automation, device like Alexa, Google Home, etc., etc., etc. I do a lot of home automation. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an Apple fanboy. I professionally and sincerely, personally, think that some of the other names, some of the ones you've typed here, are not necessarily interested in protecting your privacy. Will I put an Alexa microphone or speaker or whatever in my home? No, I will never. Will I put a Google microphone or Google this, in my home? No, I will never. That is just me, right? That is just me, and that's the honest truth about how I feel about these things. So a few years back, I don't know how many of you heard of this. It was found out a few years back that Google put microphones in Nest thermostats and did not disclose. Now, a microphone is a hardware device. They put a hardware microphone in a thermostat and did not tell people. And then when researchers found out, they said, oh, it was an error. You know how erroneously a microphone can jump out from a warehouse somewhere in China, go to where they are building a device, solder itself, and make sure the firmware supports it so that it can work. That's the kind of mistake. Just think about it for a moment and let it sink in. So I'm concerned about those type of services that do processing of whatever you say on their servers and not locally on the device. So there's no Siri in my home. No. If I want to do Siri, I'm going to press a button on my phone for Siri to be activated. I don't want Siri listening to everything that I say. So I do not think, and I do not recommend that you have all of these services listening to everything you say in your home just for the convenience of, hey, Alexa, can you turn on the lights in the den? Hey, Alexa, can you set the temperature? No. Let there be a button that you physically push if you must use any of those. But that's my advice. I know convenience is more important to some people than privacy and security. Okay. Baby monitors. So also in terms of video coverage, baby monitors, etc. Again, if you have any of those services that does local storage, right? So you can have a cloud account, but the data itself is stored on the device. They will tell you it has a memory card, it has da 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 da. I would recommend you consider those type of options. So the app is there, but it helps you access whatever is stored locally. Second, many companies are huge tech companies, but they are not created the same in terms of privacy, right? Again, I keep disclosing, I'm an Apple fanboy. In my opinion, Apple is more concerned about your privacy than many of the other names we're talking about here. And on that scale, the worst, in my opinion, is probably Facebook, right? Okay, so when you see the likes of Google, Alexa, etc. So in my opinion, if you can use a service that you trust in terms of whatever their practices are around privacy, that's fine. But I mean, not to call off a country and make them look bad, but if that device is the cheapest you can find and is made in Jianghu or Beijing or somewhere, and you really don't know the pedigree of the manufacturer, yet it has a cloud service, I won't put it in my home, not even anywhere near my kids. I won't. So sometimes you pay a premium to get a service that actually protects you more, you know. And we've seen a number of scenarios where certain products from certain parts of the world are actually intentionally compromised. So if you can, resist the urge to put those type of things around your kids and around your family. My recommendation, yes, there are needs to use baby cameras. Buy one that you can trust the pedigree of the OEM. So there are companies that their names are, I mean, you know them, basically. Consider using those type and not the cheap ones. Also, as soon as the kids are old enough, my opinion, it's not a very good idea to have a camera inside of your home. As soon as you stop the need to monitor your kids, again, it's not a very good idea to have a camera inside of your home, just for privacy reasons. Think about that. How important is an SSL for your domain? These days, if you don't have SSL on your domain, some browsers will outright not even open your pages. So it's very important. It's cheap. I mean, an SSL is less than, this SSL certificate is less than $30. You should get one. I even use email certificates. So if I send you email from my actual email address, it comes with a digital certificate so that you know it comes from me. That's an overkill. 99% of people don't need that, but I mean, SSL and digital certificates are important in terms of assurance. How safe passwords on browsers you use on laptops? So is it safe? Yeah, so I think we talked about this. Typically, you should use a password manager. You should use one browser exclusively for anything that you're going to put a username and password in. And that browser should never be used for anything else. Once in a while, you make the mistake of opening something in that browser. The moment you realize it, you need to close that tab and go to the other browser and do whatever it is. So if you maintain that type of behavior, well, you might be able to save passwords in browsers. Again, I mentioned it's better to use a password manager than just to save passwords in browsers. So search for password managers. There are things, I don't want to mention names, but there are things that you'll find. I mean, if there's something that comes out of the box on a platform, I will mention it. But the ones that you have to go out to buy commercially, I try not to mention names. Just search password managers. You will find very good ones. You should use them. They will generate passwords for you. They will keep them for you and ensure that you don't need to worry about things like that. So if people have more questions, you can fire them up. Otherwise, we'll go into the part of cybersecurity career. So if you have questions, fire your questions up here, and we would basically try to address those questions. How many people here are in cybersecurity field? If you do something that is cyber related currently as part of your work, your day-to-day. Good, good, good. One, just one person. Okay. 2, 3. Okay, so we have a number of people that are in the cyber field. All right, so there is the second part is basically about getting into cybersecurity as a profession. My preference for this, so I'm going to share this, turn on quick share here, and I'm going to turn off quick share here. So my preference for this is for people to ask questions. I don't want to assume that I know what your questions are in terms of the cybersecurity career path. I would rather you ask the questions and then I try to answer them as best as I can professionally and from my experience. So if you've got questions about how to get into the cybersecurity career, that's the quick share code. You can scan that and ask the questions. I will try to answer them. While that is ongoing, I would basically come here and also, if you have a question and you want to ask audio, you can raise your hand and the organizers will basically give you access. So that might help. Do we have any questions? Okay, so I brought this here just to get the conversation started about cybersecurity careers for free. When it comes to cybersecurity careers, there are many paths. There are very many routes to achieving the same thing. I'll put some things up on the ground up front. Cybersecurity, yes, is a career. If you're already in cybersecurity, I mean, you can tell by yourself there is demand. It's very different from IT. It's also a very specialized area. My opinion, there are more opportunities in the career path than there are individuals to fill them. And when I say that, I mean individuals that are skilled and experienced. Those two things are very different. Skills means that you can execute. Experience means you've done it a number of times and you have a track record. You won't find very many people that spot both of them. And so you continue to find, if you go to LinkedIn today and you just search for cyber security or information security jobs, information security analysts, you would see quite a number of them. In fact, I have a URL here that I'll fire up later on that will show you about, and that's focused on the US, but you can draw an inference about what's happening elsewhere in the world. So typically, I hope this is big enough for people to see. Can you read the content of this slide? If you can, please let me know.
Yes.
You can? Okay, good.
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you. So typically, if you are considering getting into cybersecurity field, two things I should tell you. First, it never ends. You know, it's great when I look at some other career, when I look at some other professions and how people can just do one thing, go to university, get a degree, whatever the level of that degree is, and that's sufficient for the rest of their lives. Honestly, it's priceless. In cybersecurity field, it's the reverse is the case. There is no end to your requirement to learn. what you knew yesterday may not be relevant today. When I started my career, I started off with networks and system administration because that's how the enterprise of the time was designed and structured. In today's world, enterprises are having fewer networks and fewer servers on premise. Everything has gone to the cloud. So the things we talked about in terms of security, learning how to configure switches, firewalls, IDSs, servers, hardening them, are no longer relevant because Microsoft or Amazon or Google actually do that now. So the question is, how do you remain relevant? Of course, you need to transition, right? And so that's the thing you need to first have at the back of your mind. Cybersecurity as a profession is one that requires you to continue to learn for the rest of your life, except of course you decide to exit and go into farming, or you become a mechanic like I'm thinking about, or you go into something else, start baking or do whatever it is that attracts your interest. But if you're not willing or ready to do that, then just get ready about the fact that you have to continue to learn. There are a number of parts. The typical background of a cybersecurity person is system administration. At a minimum, you understand computers. You know how to manage and administer them. You understand networks. You understand how networks are structured. You understand some key terminology about networks and servers, and then you start to look more specialized in terms of security. Now, that means, of course, that you have a broad number of knowledge areas. There is the cybersecurity person that is very technical, and what he's doing is basically trying to identify security weaknesses in systems and trying to either exploit them, prove the concept, and basically get whoever is responsible to address them. There's also the cybersecurity person that is on the governance and policy leadership standpoint, where it's basically helping set direction, implement standards, and ensure that there is a program beyond just technical for managing cybersecurity. There is the cybersecurity person whose specialization is actually implementation. So this person is not trying to find weaknesses, meaning he's not trying to test systems, he's not trying to put in policies. No, rather, he's trying to actually implement whatever else has been specified by whoever else is relevant, right? And so that person has technical system skills. If you are new to cybersecurity today, I can tell you for free, if you don't write code, you will struggle. Mark my word for it. If you don't write code today in today's cybersecurity world, you will struggle because we already have too many people that know governance, too many people that can write the policy, too many people that can interpret a standard. There are too many of all of those people already. There is an increasing demand for people who have technical skills, who can basically look into code, look at release pipelines, look at how cybersecurity works in a DevOps environment, look at infrastructure of the future. So back in the day, you want to build a server, you actually buy a physical box, you load an operating system on it, you load the applications, etc. In today's world, everything is in the cloud. You want to build a server, you write a code, and you push a button. The code basically configures the server, fetches all of the applications, releases and deploys, and it's a different mindset. Back in the people will talk about change management, and you had gates, where you have a change management or change advisory board, etc. In today's world, those things don't happen like that any longer because all of the changes, at least most of them, are happening at your cloud service provider, and all you are doing is releasing. How do you manage security from that standpoint? So it's a totally different world. What you must recognize, however, is that you must build your knowledge base. And the day you stop learning, your market value starts to diminish. If after what I've said, you're still interested in cybersecurity, then let's talk about a few things here. So this chart basically shows you a roadmap, and it's focused on IT. It's many areas, many things in IT. But what I want you to pay attention to is the cyber security or information security line. Some of all of these other items have bits and pieces of it, but we'll try to talk about them. All right. So you typically want to start by getting skilled and maybe certified in one of the key areas, knowledge areas. So there are quite a number of certifications. Most people will start with what is called Network Plus or Security Plus. Those give you foundational knowledge. And remember, again, there is textbook knowledge, at least for a start. It gives you foundational knowledge about the cybersecurity space, about networks, about systems, etc. And then you mature that a bit by playing with some of the other ones, like a certified ethical hacker, which gives you, again, very basic knowledge in terms of how to test systems, find out weaknesses, and exploit them, heavily focused on tools, etc. You do things like Rhcsa. These are Linux system administration type certifications, basically, that help you understand how Linux systems work, how you can basically configure them, administer them, secure them, and run them in an enterprise. Once you go beyond that, you start to look at more specialized. Okay, of course, there's also the SANS type of courses, which are a bit pricey, but actually are very broad in terms of their coverage. You know, you should by yourself, and I would share this file with the organizers. You should by yourself basically take a look at the certification courses that are listed here. If you're interested, do some research in them and decide your own path. Okay. This might look a bit dated, and I'll mention why. The reason I say might look a bit dated is that even though it's recent enough, it's 2019 or 2020, it doesn't necessarily cover cloud as within cybersecurity. It puts cloud on a separate front. My experience tells me that if you think of cybersecurity today, you basically should be combining information security, cloud, hardware infrastructure. At a minimum, these three, you should be thinking about them. Then, depending on where you specialize, storage will be very important. You know, storage and data, because today's world is a data-driven world. Data in transit, data at rest, and even more recently, as recent as a few weeks back, we're beginning to see how data is being protected even while it is processed. That's something that would evolve over the next number of few years. Then again, there is web. Too many applications today are web somewhere on the internet. They're in a cloud service somewhere. They're using one cloud technology or the other. You need to know how they work, how web services work, how access management is achieved, how data and information is protected, and then ensuring that depending on the path that you choose, you can actually draw a line of knowledge areas across any of these certification, specific certifications, so that you can build your own path. I can tell you one thing for free. Passing a certification exam is not the same thing as having the knowledge. If you want to be a cybersecurity professional who is worth his salt, then I can tell you for free, please, before you write any exam, make sure, convince yourself that you actually have the knowledge for that examination area. Whatever that certification covers, convince yourself that you do have the knowledge, meaning you've covered the content, you have understanding, and then you are only taking the examination to prove that you have that knowledge. The reason I say that is they say many people can tolerate IT people who are learning on the job. Very few organizations can tolerate cybersecurity people who are learning on the job. If they hire you as an entry-level cybersecurity person, then that's fine. The expectations are lower. But if they expect that you have experience based on the number of certifications and qualifications and credentials that you put together, and they find out that you are not there, I can tell you for free, it can be a career limiting option. So when you think about qualifications and certifications, etc., ensure that by yourself, you actually take the initiative to learn, have the knowledge, prove that you know it, and then only then go on to write the exam. Let's see if we have questions. I really want this to be driven by questions. So good, we have 5. What level of coding or programming is required? Good questions. So in terms of level of programming or coding required, I would say at a minimum, understand code and be able to write a few scripts at a minimum. The reason is that in your role as a cybersecurity person, you might find yourself having to review code or having to give assurance on software before it gets released, on a web application before it gets published. If you don't understand code at a minimum, you will struggle. Now, in some scenarios, it's good to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Not everybody is going to be a coder, okay? So if you're never going to be a coder, you must ensure that you have means or tools or services, I mean, a way to outsource basically those things that you're not competent in. So, oh, I can't write code, but there is a company that writes code. You must make it clear to your employers and whoever the stakeholders that you will use a third party for that level of assurance. But if you don't even know that that assurance needs to happen, then it becomes a challenge and it becomes career limiting. And I don't know how many of you remember, if you look at Equifax data breach, when that thing happened, they called out the CISO. They said, oh, she wasn't an IT person. I mean, our community can sometimes be unfair. Oh, she wasn't an IT person. She studied whatever. How did she find herself in cyber? They crucified her. I don't necessarily share that view because you can pivot from anywhere to anywhere. Someone can have a degree in baking and become a cybersecurity professional. It's skills and experience that count, you know, not what you studied in university alone. So ensure that at a minimum, you understand how to interpret code, or if you don't, how to find the individuals or the resources that can help you to do that. It will make a difference in your career. Where does CXX fall here? So CXX is the Rhcsa Cyber Security Nexus. I would try not to diminish the value of the CSX. It's one of the foundational courses. If you look at this, it's going to be, at best, it's going to be intermediate or maybe beginner novice. That's where it is. It's basically, and that's what it is basically, is cybersecurity is foundation basically, just, you know, the absolute minimum to get you started. So if you have that qualification, good, but there are very many other certifications and qualifications that you may want to consider to add beneath your belt, you know. Imagine you're discussing, so imagine that you work in an enterprise where you people still have a physical office location and you're the cybersecurity person and you don't even understand switches, how switches work. You don't understand how VLANs work. You can't configure a VLAN, or you can't tell them, you can't ask an intelligent question about why this VLAN is this and why that VLAN is that, and why are you routing and switching this way. It's going to be a career limiting challenge if you don't. So as I mentioned, make sure that your knowledge base always counts first before you ever attempt to take any certification. All right, I hope I was able to answer that correctly. Next is, what are your thoughts on TikTok? Social media. I'm not a big fan for TikTok. If you want to be on all of these social media platforms, trust me, another one will come out tomorrow. There's been stuff around TikTok stealing your keystrokes, as we saw with the beta version of iOS 14 that is coming out. Meaning, if you have TikTok installed on your phone and you start typing something elsewhere, it basically monitors your keystrokes and is stealing your keystrokes. There's a lot that still needs to be proven in there, but I mean, like I mentioned, I'm not a big fan for social media. So if you don't absolutely have to be on it, you don't have a business. If you need to be on it because it can be entertaining, it doesn't have to be your real name. I keep saying it again. It doesn't have to be your real name. It doesn't have to be your real email address. So if you are one of the people on this call that all the emails that you use are your name, your first name, your last name at gmail.com, at yahoo.com, something that basically identifies you, you need to go and open another account today that doesn't relate, that can't be linked directly to you in terms of how it looks, and then use that type of account to open all of these things so that if they even ever get compromised, who cares? As an individual, I have at least 10 email addresses, and some of them I have, if you see some of them, you will laugh. Some of them are even real names, but they are not my own real name, you know. I mean, an email address is an email address. So if you absolutely need to use a service like TikTok or any of the other social media services, remember again, make sure that you are not totally disclosing all the information about who you are. How easy is it for a newbie to get into the cybersecurity field? Very easy. Also, very difficult. What's the difference between those two extremes? Your interest and commitment. So I'm very many years and into my cybersecurity career. I'm more on the technical side of things, even though, yes, I'm now in management role and all, but I am still a geek, right? I'm still a geek. I can't take that away from myself. I still do technical stuff. That's why I have VirtualBox firing Kali Linux and scanning my network and seeing what's happening on Telos. So I'm still a geek, right? As long as you are interested and committed, I can tell you there's almost no limits. Cybersecurity is easy because many people are not willing to go the extra mile. I can tell you for free, many people who start their cybersecurity start to get perplexed very quickly because they are really not interested. Their motivation is the remuneration. Wow, they pay these people a lot of money, you know, I want to get in there. But they also don't want to put in the work, you know. It's also one of those careers that sometimes it can be perplexing because everything that you know or everything that you did that worked or were perfect up to yesterday, you wake up this morning and all of those things are out the window. Where do you even start from? I don't know, many of you read on, just last week, there was an emergency patch from Microsoft, basically. And it turns out that the way Microsoft implemented virtualization, you know, the way they basically reference the file system within Hyper-V virtualized environments, which is all over Azure, is such that someone can determine the host. So if you're, I'm trying not to use technical terms, but I can't escape it. So the way virtual machines work is that there's a virtualization platform and there are many virtual machines inside. And the idea is that you shouldn't be able to escape from a virtual machine into the host system. How do I explain that? Imagine that you live on a street and every house is a host. The idea is that nobody in one house should be able to come out of his house and know what's happening in the other house, right? That's why we all have different house numbers and addresses, right? Then they found a vulnerability that shows that it's possible for someone in one house to know what's happening in the other house. In fact, to know everything that is happening on the street. It's bad. There's no other way to say it. It's just a bad scenario. Now, all of the servers, almost all of the servers that run in Azure, a huge percentage of them depend on this type of virtualization. So all of a sudden, you are at risk. Whether that gets exploited immediately or not, guess what? You are the Chief Information Security Officer. You've assured the leadership team just on Friday, on Thursday, the day before that, look, our systems are secure, we use Azure, Microsoft provides, you said everything, your suit's shining, your head nodding, and everybody's fine. Next day you come to them and say, actually, we might have a problem and it looks as if we've been compromised. It makes you look as if you're incompetent. That's the field we're in, you know? But then again, there's also the part that when that information became public, some people got to know immediately, some the next day, some 2 months after. What type of CISO do you want to be? What type of cybersecurity professional are you? Are you the one that finds out 6 months after, 2 months after, 3 months after, or when it happens? So you need to stay on top of your game. You suddenly realize that as much as you love everything on social media, TikTok and the likes, you have less and less time for those things, because the things that your career and your profession are about are a lot more in terms of taking your time and attention. And if you are really committed to it and you are going to be great at it, then your energy will be spent in that direction, you know. So it's easy to get into. Just get started. Go to YouTube. Everybody has YouTube. You can be a professional in no time. Just search cybersecurity. Where do I start from? There are books, there are forums, there are all sorts. And you can start reading something. Of course, again, I mean, I think that's why the good organizers of this thing put this together. You can find a mentor, find an individual who is already experienced, and then, you know, they can guide you through moving through your career from start and making progress. For a product manager who wants to pivot to cybersecurity, how would it fit? Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter if you're a caterer. Anyone can do cyber. All that counts. I mean, and this is the really good thing about cybersecurity. Your interest and commitment are two very important things. So there are months that I stay up till 2 a.m. every night for the entire month because I'm learning something new. What am I trying to pass across to you? Your knowledge base is never complete. It's never sufficient. You need to continue reading. You need to continue learning. You need to continue discovering. So as long as you've got that interest and commitment, trust me, anyone can be a great cybersecurity practitioner, anyone. So as a product manager, yes. What you will struggle with also what you might struggle with as a product manager is product managers are focused, depending on how your organization is structured. Assuming you do Scrum and Agile, etc., you're probably focused on features, release, etc. Cybersecurity is like a speed bump. So you're not thinking about the feature and the release. You are thinking about the control and the security. And there's that conflicting interest and demand for feature, customer versus security assurance. As a cybersecurity person, you need to make sure that you are able to balance the two on the best of both worlds. Because if you go to the leadership today and say, you know what, we mustn't do this. In fact, if we must do it, we must spend $1 million. And they spend $1 million and everybody thinks everything is fine. Then next year again, you come and say, oh, we must spend another $500,000 and they spend it. And then 1 year comes and you say, you know, we have to spend $200,000. And they say, look, we're not spending it, and nothing happens. You start to lose your credibility. But then again, it doesn't mean that not spending it, I mean, just because nothing happened does not mean it was a good idea not to invest in cybersecurity. So as a professional, you need to make the right balance. And this is something product managers actually struggle with when it comes to cybersecurity, because they're always focused on external value. And cybersecurity guys tend to focus on preserving and retaining internal value and reducing risk. Okay, what path would you recommend for someone in sound networking, CCNA? Oh, I started with CCNA also. The very first certification I ever took in my life in 2002 or 2003 was CCNA. So you have a good background. At least you understand networks. You understand how they are structured. I'm assuming that the CCNA that you are talking about is not dumps. It is, you can actually configure a switch. And if you want, I have a switch in my house here so that we test your CCNA, right? If you actually do have proper knowledge of switching and networks, you are a step in the right direction, because you can then extend that into whatever else you need to learn. Because at the moment, at least you know how VLANs work, you know how to separate them, you know how to configure them, you understand routing and switching. So at a minimum, you can secure network traffic. That's a good starting point. Next is to get into servers and systems, etc., and then get into code. All right. And last is, how do you get into cybersecurity starting from the scratch? Answer: YouTube. Everybody has YouTube. So you're a professional. Just go to YouTube. Cybersecurity 101. How to learn cybersecurity. Again, find a mentor. So I do have a number of people that I currently mentor, and one of the things I encourage them to do is this. There's feedback coming from someone's mic. One of the things I encourage them to do is learn. So we say, what are your key strengths? What are your interest areas? And let's try using this certification path that I showed you to actually work something out. And next I said to them is, okay, go and learn about this and write this exam. Give yourself a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever works for you. Remember, don't write any exam until you are sure that you have knowledge base. I cannot say that sufficiently. If I say it 1 million times, it will still be relevant to say the 1 millionth and one time. Don't write any professional exam until you are sure that you have the appropriate knowledge to demonstrate that you earned that certification. You know, it's like going to work. You know, each time you come back, you earn an additional badge. That's the way you should think about it. So starting from the scratch, find a mentor, go on YouTube, figure out a career path, and then walk through that path. I have something that I picked up out. I know there's one question that I'm going to answer. You should look at this URL, cyberseek.org pathway. Basically, this shows you, I mean, depending on where you find yourself, right? So say you're in networking and you want to build into your career, into the cybersecurity direction. Sorry, let me show you all of this. Basically, it shows you how to, you know, go from one to the other, and it tells you how you feed from one into the other, okay? So you should take a look at this at a later time and determine how your own career should work. So as a networking person, typically you are either networking, software, or systems engineering. So you're a technical person, and then you typically go into the analyst role, the consultant role, or technical testing. So I started from networking, and then I went into specialist technician. Then I went to penetration testing, and then eventually consultant, analyst, manager. So that's the direction that I've gone in my cybersecurity world. I'm not an engineer. I'm not on the engineering path. I'm more on the leadership path. But this actually helps give you some insights into how to proceed on your career. This is how do you get a cyber? Okay, so that's the one I addressed. And the next one is, I'm conscious about time, we have 11 minutes. From the roadmap, it seems one cannot escape being proficient in Linux. So, good question. As a cybersecurity person, again, you know, it's the sad truth that you can't escape having skills and competence in many areas. It's painful, but it's the truth. A sysadmin is a sysadmin is a sysadmin. He's only concerned about Windows or Linux or both, and that's all he does. A network admin is a network admin is a network admin. He or she is only concerned in network and securing networks, and that is all. A software developer is a software developer is a software developer, and they're only concerned about. But as a cybersecurity person, you are looking at the entire landscape. So in my own career, when I started network sysadmin, then I moved into penetration testing, then I moved into consulting, governance, service management, and a lot of implementing standards like ISO 27001, PCI DSS back then in Nigeria. Okay, and then after that, I moved into heavy infrastructure. So until that time, I had done sysadmin, but I had not done major infrastructure. So I moved into major infrastructure, core telco networks. I started doing things that I never imagined I would do. Down the line, again, I moved into consulting, and then I found myself back in an environment where I'm looking at software development. So what did I have to do? I had to skill up some more around software development, because if people are building and releasing into the production environment and I can't give assurance over what's being released into the production environment, then I'm of no value to that organization. Their network, their sysadmin guys can basically secure the network and the hardware and the servers, etc. Where they need me for assurance is really around what gets released into production. So I have to get involved in it. I have to develop my own knowledge base. And of course, I have to hold my hands up honestly to say, hey, I'm not a software developer, but I can learn. So let's look at this together. Hey, you're a great guy. Can you teach you? Can you explain what you've done? And then learn and continue to learn. You really can't escape one or the other, unfortunately, in cyber. You are the all-rounder that the organization depends to give assurance on everything else. And then something else I put on my list that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Yes, it's around social network. So a lot of people, everybody here is probably on a social media network or the other. If you're on a WhatsApp group or the other, can you please raise your hand? Let me see. If you're on at least one WhatsApp group or the other, can you please raise your hand? Nobody. Wow. People on this group. Oh, good. Oh, wow. Good. Okay. So one of the things I thought to share with you is this. Think about your privacy and take it seriously. So I tend to encourage people if you're concerned about security and privacy, there are things that are unique to you. There are things that you may not recognize it, but they actually serve as identification and authentication for you. Things like your phone numbers, right? You belong to all of these WhatsApp groups. Some of them you've never even left a comment in there, but everybody there has your phone number. I want to give you an insight into how easy it is for someone who compromises someone else's phone or have access to it to basically harvest all of the phone numbers in minutes. So I will go to WhatsApp web. Is that web? Okay, I'll go to WhatsApp web and I would maybe I should put this here. Maybe someone will be, is there someone that is magnanimous enough to log into my WhatsApp web so that I'll be looking at their content after today? No one. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. So I'm going to show you, if you can see my screen with WhatsApp, can you please raise your hand? Just so that I'm sure you can see. Okay, good. So I'm going to log in very quickly to this. Good. I'm just going to, don't worry, it's going to load. Good. And so say as an example, okay, so imagine this is just a group, right? Where there are many users, etc. And I want to harvest their details. I can easily come here, right? And then I go to my browser. And this is what anybody else can do. I right click on my browser and I do inspect element. And it shows me all of this code at the bottom. It looks as if it's nothing, okay? So all I need to do is move. Now I know that the users are all here, right? So all I need to do is move things around a bit. So good. So I see that in this section is what covers the entire screen. I'm going to expand it, right? And I go to the next one. Oh, this covers the actual WhatsApp area, as you are seeing on screen. I expand it, I start moving my mouse. This covers the entire WhatsApp area. This covers the first part. This covers the second part, right? That second part is where the contact details are. So I'm going to expand that. I come here again, it's still there. So I expand it, just what the way I'm expanding. Now I see this is selecting the section, basically, where I have the user accounts. If I scroll down, it's away, so it has to be in there. I'm going to expand it, come to the first one, that's the image. Next one, the name of the group, and then some of the contacts. And the third one goes away, so it has to be in this one. Just watch that. And I go to the next one, the name of the group, and this one, the contact. So it has to be in here. So I expand this, and there you go. All of the, in a few minutes, all of the phone numbers and email address. So if there were 256 people, basically, I would have all of them right now, and that's it. So a number of people on this call that I try to, that I say to look, I'm anti-WhatsApp because I know that there's a privacy issue, especially with Facebook, that I have my reservations about. I encourage people to, think about your privacy. Think about your privacy. Think about the fact that one person gets compromised on this group and the administrators are not active. All of the user accounts can be compromised. Your phone numbers can be harvested. And of course, the person will start sending you messages. So while you may think it's difficult for one person to open 256 and copy them one after the other, this is what they will do. Anybody can do this and harvest all of the credentials. So it's yours to think about. I think security, privacy, always very important. Let's see if we have, close this. No other questions. So over to you, organizers, if there are no further questions. Timothy.
As usual, sir, you have overwhelmed me personally, because right now, what I've been doing since basically signing out of sessions and downloading browsers. Honestly, that's what I've been doing, because I realized that I personally use two browsers all the time, right? Safari on my phone and then Google everywhere else. So I think I am overly reliant on Google, and I need to uproot some roots that I have there. So thank you very much for this. I have personally found this informative. I'm not in my house right now, but I'm definitely going to go and change the network name and passwords on my Telos box. That's going to happen today. And yeah, clearly how I use internet is going to change. It's definitely going to change. So thank you very much, Bode, for making this happen. We really appreciate it. And I understand why you're always 0x7F000001. And I am going to take a cue from that. Even though Dr. Ayodele is not my full name, but it's more than enough to locate me and identify me. So I will also take that on board as relevant personal direction. To everyone who has been part of this session and listened to us, I want to thank you for making the time to be here. I want to appreciate the efforts and the decision that you have made to, just hear this, because this is useful and relevant information for this time. We've taken all the questions at the moment. We've talked about career paths. I also want to thank all the various people who have helped share our content and material, right? First things first, all the various people: Life in Canada Group, Calgary, Niger, PR, Citizens, Girls Hangouts, GTA Connect, PwC Alumni, Edmonton's Greatest WhatsApp Group, Destination Alberta, Calgary Connect Telegram Group, Soccer and Bands, Calgary, and all the other WhatsApp groups that we have, people who have shared this information and from which we've had attendees. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you, Bode, for one, preparing the content, and two, sharing it in the manner with which you have. I believe that we'll be able to properly utilize this information and better secure ourselves on the internet. As usual, I want to thank all of the brands that are represented within Side Gigs and Extra Bar: Urban Radio Scope, Startup Court, Calgary Gourmet Barbecue and Grill, Hypermatic, Calgary Family Clinic, and Dexteritas. And I also want to point to the work being done by a gentleman known as Teslim Salau, who runs Slim Prep. He's having a CISSP bootcamp, and this information will also share as part of what will be available on the back end of this session. So it's 3 p.m. now. We've taken up the entirety of the 2-hour time frame that you've given us, and thank you very much for being here and making it happen. That's all of it from this afternoon, from us for this afternoon. And as the year wears on, we'll continue to bring you great content that we believe you'll find useful going forward. Thanks very much. Thanks to Tim. Thanks to Bode. Thanks to all the guys from Side Gigs. And we'll see you at our next event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank
Thank you so much. It is highly appreciated. Thank you.